So, yesterday I gave out an idea I really have no interest in. Today, I'll give you a trade idea that excites me maybe just a little bit more. What's going on, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Wizards Latest. And again, we'll get into a little bit more trade talk here today with the Wizards, again, off the basketball court. I'll give you, really, we're going to switch gears a whole bunch here today. Give you my thoughts on the NBA on Prime coverage just a little bit after watching last night's action. Again, I'll shift another gear. We'll talk about Derek Queen down in New Orleans. A lot of people saying that the Wizards missed out big time in the draft. And as always, we'll jump in the comment section from the previous video. Appreciate all your support here on the page and on the road to 1K. Make sure you've liked and hit those like and subscribe buttons. Excuse me. Drop your comments as well for a chance for your voice to be heard here on the show. And again, yesterday we were talking a little bit about Zion Williamson, and I really kind of told you guys, I think despite a lot of interest and excitement I'm seeing from the fan base, I would stay away from Zion. Today, let's chat about a player that might excite me just a little bit more if he were to join the Wizards or the Wizards were to trade for the Spurs last night, rolling over the Lakers in that NBA Cup action. Stephon Castle dropped 30. De'Aaron Fox dropped 20. And you can see the name down there. That's the guy we're going to talk about. And of course, they have a top two pick in Dylan Harper, also a guard coming off of the bench. So the thought around the league is that the Spurs are going to give those three kind of this year to see how things work, see how they fit together. But of course, Fox eligible to be traded February 4th, trade deadline February 5th. The idea is that as that gets a little bit closer, the Spurs might have that in mind and, might want to split up that three-guard lineup. Also, of course, maybe the idea that the Spurs might want to get in on going after a Giannis deal, and you would have to clear out your supermax guard in Fox's contract to do that. So, the idea I've seen from Sleeper Wizards over on Twitter, of course, a good follow. A lot of you probably do. You can hit me at Ben Robertson 32 on Twitter/X as well. But suggested to send Middleton and Champagnie plus a 29 first rounder and a 2030 first rounder to the Spurs for De'Aaron Fox. Now, remember, neither of those picks before, and obviously the first round picks are the thing that's going to be kind of maybe people are going to get their attention caught by, if I could get that out. And don't get me wrong, I'm not sure that Middleton and Champagnie alone excite the Spurs a ton. I have to imagine you throw in those kind of kickers as well. But remember, the 2029 first rounder is the second best of three different teams. And then the 2030 first rounder is a top 20 protected pick by Golden State. So Washington, neither of those picks are originally the Wizards. And also, frankly, by 2029 and 2030, I'm hoping the team isn't, hanging out at the bottom of the league anymore. This rebuild has actually kind of worked, and really, hopefully, those first rounders don't have as much value as you would, if you were a rebuilding, tanking team. Now, with Fox, the team obviously needs a point guard moving forward, and when he's on the court, he's one of the most dynamic players in the league at that spot. It would allow you to not look guard also in next year's draft. Maybe if you really fall in love with a Boozer or DeBonsa, really focus on those two and not have to worry about finding your guard of the future. And then remember, with him not being eligible to be traded until near the deadline anyway, and maybe even that being something that goes down in the offseason, it's not going to affect trying to hold on to that pick this year. Now, the hesitation for me would be this. Fox is already 27, and I know that's in your natural prime, but injuries starting to mount just a little bit over the last couple of seasons. First 7 years in the league, pretty healthy, played 70 plus games 4 times, played at least 50 in all 7 of those years. But remember what I said with Zion Williamson yesterday. If I'm going to pay you 40 plus million and the Wizards for Fox, his extension, he would be getting paid even more than that. It's going to be around 50, 60 million every year of his deal. You better be on the court. And I'm not sure I can guarantee at his, I'm not going to say old age, but at 27, if he's going to see out the life of that contract fully healthy. However, him just being in that point guard spot, and that does really excite me, kind of that dynamic element he could bring. Let me know your thoughts there on Adair and Fox. And again, I like the thought here with the trade, regardless of whether you want to go in on Fox or not. I like the idea of looking for teams that kind of have a guy, or are going to have a guy on the outside looking in. And when you look at the Spurs, right, you have that, three guards, two of them being really young in Castle and Harper. There's one older Supermax player that might be kind of on the outside of that equation. Now, on the flip side of that, there's other situations around the league where a player, I actually, I'll use just off the top of my head, and we're not really going to talk a bunch of Cam Whitmore today. We've talked about him a whole bunch this week. But on the outside looking in of Houston, they're really trying to contend, don't maybe have a place for him right now, and the Wizards go after those ideas. I really am interested in. Let's shift gears just a little bit. We're going to do it once, maybe twice here in today's video. How about the NBA on Prime last night? I was watching, of course, that NBA Cup action, caught kind of the tail end of the Thunder blowout, and then watched the Spurs-Lakers game, and of course, the Wizards off, kind of shifting the attention to the national stage just a little bit. And watching that NBA Prime pregame and postgame, it's got Blake Griffin, Udonis Haslem. Who else was on there? I think Steve Nash is on there as well. And then our guy, John Wall, who I think has been really, really entertaining in both his monumental coverage and on the national stage. And I just think the NBA, I know it says on Prime NBC there, that kind of partnership, kind of the NBA working with NBC now has kind of led to also the Prime stuff. And I just think with those platforms, they're just giving us as viewers content. And again, those pregame and postgame shows. My best example of this is last night. You got those four guys, all who have played in the NBA, understand kind of NBA offense and defense, obviously. They're showing, actually walking through how players essentially foul bait and can be so skilled at doing that. Udonis Haslem is saying, hey, when I came into the league, we were taught to defend like this, and now we can't do that anymore. It's just something we haven't seen on other networks, and maybe the talent even on other networks hasn't really been able to give us. I've just been really pleased with that shift and the coverage we are getting. Now, I told you we're going to switch the topic a few times here, really bouncing all around today. Let's talk Derek Queen just a little bit. I'm seeing a ton of people, essentially, I know is even one of the comments from yesterday's video saying the Wizards missed out big time in the draft on Derek Queen. Now, if you're saying that the Wizards should have traded up like New Orleans for Queen and got him, in the middle of the first round, I can get behind that, right? I'm not faulting what you're saying there. Remind me, I think Queen was let me double check this, the 13th overall pick. Yeah. So if you're saying you should have traded up there and made that move, which we talked about a little bit even pre-draft, I can live with that. Remember, it would mean giving up Will Riley, because that's what happened there. New Orleans traded the number 23 pick and a future first round unprotected pick. But if you're going to sit here and tell me that the Wizards shouldn't have drafted Trey Johnson and should have drafted Derek Queen with the number 6 overall pick, well, you better have been screaming that back on draft night as well. I think it's really easy to kind of use hindsight. Now Trey's dealing with, some injuries. And I don't get me wrong, Queen has looked great. He's coming off a 30-point triple-double. I mean, it's pretty impressive. But remember, Trey Johnson with the projected number 3 overall pick. And sports are all about making bets, whether you're a coach, whether you're a GM. It's about making an educated guess, essentially, of the thing you think is most likely to pan out. And everybody, again, people were talking about Trey Johnson as a top 3 pick. Everybody was saying landing him at the number 6 spot is a steal. Now, don't go revisionist history on me and say Derek Queen should have been the selection there at number 6. I can kind of understand it if you wanted to trade up for him at 13. But remember, a future first round unprotected pick was the price, as well as a 23 overall pick in that draft. I think Asa Newell ended up being the guy, if I'm not mistaken. So let's jump into the comment section from the previous video. And I really want to answer something. Again, we were talking really this week about the Cam Whitmore, Brian Keefe drama. I know I saw Truth Be Told was the one who had mentioned another elephant in the room with this franchise is passing on Derek Queen. JCast Properties LLC says trade AJ and Cam. They deserve a chance on another team. The Wizards are clearly set on developing Bub and Bilal. That's fine. Then free AJ and Cam if that's the case. I would actually argue what the Wizards are doing, and it might be frustrating if you're an individual fan of those particular players, but what the Wizards are doing in terms of stockpiling young talent and essentially saying, hey, you guys can go duel it out in practice, and you're all going to get some opportunities in game action. We might be a little bit frustrated on maybe the amount of opportunities for certain players, but the Wizards shouldn't be saying, hey, let's just, let our young talent walk away. What they're doing, I actually think, is correct in that regard. We had a couple of we had a Stevie Wonder and a Ray Charles reference to Melvin McRae was saying Ray Charles can see that Cam has terrible body language. The coach has to walk back the comments to save any trade value Cam might have. Actually, a decent point I saw there, and one I haven't heard a bunch. Cam fell in draft and didn't get much time in Houston because of attitude concerns. I know we had a Stevie Wonder reference as well. Can see that the coach is a liar, a terrible coach, and does not know how to develop players. This is really Hachimura all over again. That was from Daryl Hardy as well. Really, really appreciate your comments, guys. Thanks for dropping your thoughts. Frank White 73 says the Wizards need a real coach. I know that. Oh, and Jameel CI, he asked who would be your ideal candidate if the Wizards were to move on from Brian Keefe. I would. I was kind of, and I saw one suggestion would a kind of a Mark Jackson type coach who you think about his development with the Warriors, and obviously is given a lot of credit for helping build that team up before Steve Kerr obviously came over and was the guy there when they really went over the top with all their championships. I like that idea as well. There's a couple of coaches right now, to me, that are free agents that I'm not really sure why, frankly, because we see coaches all the time get kind of recycled in the NBA, and I'm a little bit surprised I haven't seen these two guys get picked up. Maybe they're just looking for the right opportunity. And that's going to be Mike Malone, the former Denver coach, and then Taylor Jenkins, the former Memphis coach. With Jenkins, remember, he kind of got unceremoniously fired early into, a couple seasons ago. And uh, he's just a coach I thought did really good things with a young team and made them one of the best teams in the league, back-to-back 50-win seasons, a 56-win season on his resume. And then for Mike Malone, he's an NBA champion, again, kind of unexpectedly fired last year by the Nuggets, and he's a guy that I'm not sure, maybe he's looking for a team where he feels like he can slide in and is right back close to that championship level. But hey, maybe he's looking, for a young big man like he's worked with before, that he can really, build and develop a roster with. Maybe that would be a challenge he's looking for. But those are probably my top two candidates. Let me know what you guys think about that. I'm not saying I'd have to look a little bit more about, are those the right guys and the right fits for this current Wizards team or where they're going to be at next year. But those are the two that just off the top of my head go, if you're going after a coach, you have to make calls to one of those couple of guys. We'll keep you posted on everything Wizards related right here on the page. Do me a favor, hit those like and subscribe buttons if you've gotten this far and haven't done so already. Appreciate all the support here on the road to 1K. Make sure you drop your comments as well. And thanks for watching another episode of Wizards Latest.